hour on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. And we're actually all here excited about talking about this crazy market that we're in. So first I want to start off in the studio with us. We have Patrick Loftus of Loftus Law. Patrick, if you don't mind, give us a who are you and tell us how people get hold of you.
Good morning. I am Patrick Loftus, and I am with a law firm called Loftus Law. I have a cat.
Keep it simple.
Her name is baby girl Naya T. Cat, and the T does stand for the. I also have a wife. Her name is Anna. I love you, baby. If you want to get in touch with me, go ahead and give me a call, 773-632-8330.
And in the studio, our guest host this week is Itai Hasak. Did I pronounce that right?
Sure did.
Itai Hasak. Good. Itai, if you don't mind, give us a little bit about you, your experience, the brokerage, and say hi to somebody special, please.
So I'm a real estate broker with Compass, married with 2 children. So hi to my wife, Lital. I've been doing this is year 5 for me. Started out without properties, switched over to Compass after about a year. Haven't looked back since.
I love it. And then remotely, we got Joey Mathews at the Federal Savings Bank. Joey, give us a little shout out and tell us why you're my favorite.
Hey, I am Joey Mathews, NMLS 1330694, the VA loan nerd. My shout out will go to Noelle today, since she is staring at me
she's
while
lovely.
she's eating cereal.
What kind of cereal?
I don't know what it's called, but I know there's chocolate involved.
Nice.
Because I'm a good parent. You can find me at the VA Loan Nerd across all of my social medias, TikTok, IG, Twitter, all those. And I have no idea where I was going with that. 630-235-2405.
I love derailing Joey. Every time I interrupt him, he's just like, oh, man.
Dude, my brain goes straight to a tangent, and I forgot what my last tangent was. It's great.
Nah, we're both ADHD people, I suspect, so,
A little bit.
we need to put the Adderall in the water, I guess. Joey, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, with the market, I think, right? I know there's a lot of news out there this past week. Give us an update. Get us caught up and how does it affect the real estate market?
Yeah, so the Fed, they're on pace to raise rates another quarter point in May, which I mean, at the end of the day, that's what expectation was, right? And quarter point on the Fed funds rate, so the target rate will be at 5. The reason for that is because last week, actually, we had a lot of nice soft data come in last week. However, it was not soft enough for people's likings, so retail came in under expectation, but still over what people actually wanted it to come in.
That's interesting. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by what they wanted it to come in on?
So when people are pricing in their futures trading, there's an expectation for what they think numbers will come in at. They also see the previous numbers from the last month's readings or the previous year's readings. And the number that they wanted to see to make sure the Fed did not raise rates was not there. So spending was, even though spending was under the expected amount, we'll call it, retail sales was under the expected amount, it was still over what people were comfortable with to take out the 25 bips increase in futures trading. So we will see the Fed raise 25 bips, and that's okay because that number is now already crawling through the market. So any rate increase that you've seen over the last 3 days, that's all you're going to see. And honestly, it's probably only an eighth, maybe a quarter, so nothing crazy. The other piece is that is going to be the last Fed raise for the year. That's the expectation, right? So while we still monitor the economic data, if nothing is really outlandish in terms of beating expectations, particularly when we look at jobs. That's really been the important, jobs and inflation. Then we can anticipate the Fed just staying its course and maintaining a target rate at 5.
Is that what the Fed is saying, or is that what Joey Mathews of the Federal Savings Bank is guessing?
No. That's so when the Fed last met, the meeting minutes got released from the FOMC, the Federal Open Markets Committee, and there's a strong opinion, literally among everyone, it was a unanimous opinion that we will be in a recession before the end of the year. End of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter, there will be a recession. They say it's going to be mild, right? Jerome Powell, the last time he spoke, he said that they will no longer target raising rates. They will monitor the market and make decisions based on the market, which is essentially him saying we're done raising rates unless something wild happens. So that's coming from Jay Powell.
That's outstanding. And Joey, just to give you a heads up, if you're not following it on Facebook, because we are live right now, there is a home inspector out there that does have questions regarding FHA lending requirements. And I know they're not the same as the VA lending requirements, but if you don't mind, give them a little nudge over there on Facebook, and anybody else who wants to see these conversations, you can always view the recordings on our Facebook page. Just look for the Home Buyer's Hour, and you could go from there. But this way, unless he wants to type in, we could also answer it on the air. I would appreciate that as well. So, Itai, my phone is ringing off the hook today, all right? Mm-hmm. And which I'm happy about. Don't get me wrong. All right. So that means there's a lot of transactions and a lot of movement coming on. And Patrick knows that once I get busy, he gets busy. First, it's usually Joey, then me, then Patrick. Goes in that order. But what are you seeing out in our Chicagoland area in our market going on?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting market. Very competitive from a buyer standpoint because there is very, very little inventory out there right now. Just to give you an idea, one metric that we use to measure inventory is called month supply. And that ranges from, 1 and up. 5 is considered a balanced market. Anything below that is considered a seller's market.
So this is a scale is what you're talking about, right?
Essentially. Basically, the metric says if we don't put up any additional homes on the market as of today, how long is it going to take to sell the existing inventory? And that's measured in months.
I've heard this before.
Right now, we're hovering around 2 for the Chicagoland area, which...
So 2 months is what you're telling me, right?
To sell all the existing inventory, yeah.
Is that a big number? Is that a small number? What does that mean?
It is a very, very small number.
So that's fast.
It's fast, and it means that there's not a lot of options for buyers out there.
Imagine by June 19th, there's no more houses to buy. That's not a long time. Of course. But
so you're the way I'm imagining this in my head is our reserve funds that we keep in our house just in case everybody becomes unemployed. How long are we going to be able to keep everything moving the way we're moving?
Essentially,
kind of the same thing. So what do? You're not a small-time broker. You handle a lot of transactions. How many clients are you working with right now? And if that's personal, say it. But,
I'd have to count for a couple of minutes. But right now, as far as super active clients, I'd say probably 15.
That's a big number.
Of those, 11 are buyers.
Okay.
Most of them have been in multiple offer situations at this point. Obviously still looking, so they haven't won yet. But we're seeing people get creative with their offers. They're doing some interesting stuff, and let's say they're waiving their appraisal gap contingency. So basically, if the appraisal comes in under the value that's agreed upon, they're either going to cover that themselves or they're going to restructure their loan. Typically in a typical transaction, you get an appraisal that comes in below asking, you typically renegotiate the price. But we're not seeing that in this market. So people are throwing out, any tools that they can in order to get the inside track on a multiple offer situation. To give you a further idea of how competitive the market is, last weekend I wrote up 4 different offers for 4 different clients on 4 different, properties. Every single one of them had between 5 and 12 offers.
Wow. And how much over were you?
Just can't disclose that.
I'm sorry about that. No, I apologize for asking that. And how about we go a little more generic?
It's a significant amount.
Joey, last week we were talking about that, and I was throwing out, like $25,000 or something like that. Mm. And he's going, well, $25,000 could be a lot of money or it could be a little money. It depends on what the actual price of the house is. So he brought it back to being a percentage. Can we talk about that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen homes go for 8 to 10% over.
That's a pretty high amount.
Which is, yeah. It's
so if we're talking about $1 million home, we're talking 80 to 100 grand.
Could be.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, what that suggests to me is that it might be a good time to put my house on the market.
I would agree, since there's not a lot of competition that's out there and stuff like that. But what is,
Well, I think
what's stopping them?
I think the issue we're running into is those people, right, who would want to sell in a market like today. Most of them are locked into, and Joey can speak to this probably better than I can, but most of them are locked into really, really good rates, probably in the 3s. So their buying power is greatly diminished in a market like today because rates are double that now. So, typically you move up a rung as far as price point is concerned. But due to the rates right now, their buying power is greatly diminished. So what are they going to do? They're going to buy basically the same home and pay more. Doesn't make sense for them to go on the market. Unless, they have a life situation that kind of forces them into that situation. Let's say, they have a kid and they need to upsize or something like that.
Yeah, I think what you might have seen in the past in such situations is at first people, they have a very narrow bandwidth as far as what they're willing to accept, so to speak. It's like this neighborhood or, this price point, this set of amenities. They've got a very specific list of requirements. And then as these life changes occur, that list becomes a little bit more malleable. Okay, so maybe I am okay with another neighborhood or moving out to a certain suburb. Maybe I don't have to have a full acre. I can do a half acre, so on and so forth. And for the time being, as people can kind of mold their lives around their current situation just based on the interest rate and such things, at some point that's going to become unworkable, and I think you'll see more people become a little bit more flexible. At the moment, they're not so much required to, but it's going to happen.
And with all the shortage of inventory and all these buyers out of there and everybody going over, I mean, that's going to drive up house prices pretty quickly. Is that a fair statement? I mean,
so they've either right now we're in peak spring market, so we're seeing an increase in price, which is typical for this time of the year. But people expected prices to come down with the rising interest rates. We have not seen that in the Chicagoland area. We've seen prices remain steady or increase slightly depending on the specific neighborhood or suburb in Chicago.
And that leads me to another thought, which is, given what you just said, despite the fact that as a seller, that's great. As a buyer, I'm scared. But if that is the trend, and that trend is going to be persistent, yes, I might be entering into a very competitive market as a buyer, but if I wait it out, so to speak, 12 months from now, I'm going to be paying those higher prices even in a less competitive market.
So what do you do to help your client? I mean, how do you get your buyer's contract accepted as opposed? I mean, there's got to be some techniques.
Yeah, so there's plenty of techniques. Number one, if you're in a multiple offer situation, and assuming the seller accepts it, we would put in a price escalation clause. That's number one.
And what is that? Go into more detail about that.
A price escalation clause basically states that whereas we come in with an offer, just for example, $350, right? The escalation clause would state we'll beat any competing offer by a certain amount up to whatever the buyer deems is the max they're willing to pay for that. So let's say $375 in this case. Then the listing agent would, assuming we have the highest bid in that situation, the listing agent would have to provide us with a verifiable offer to confirm that they actually had a competing offer, which kicked in the escalation clause into effect. So that's one tool that we would use in a multiple offer situation. One practice that we're seeing, which is very common right now, is in multiple offer situations, most offers are including an as-is clause, which basically states that they're buying the property as is. They can still have the right to an inspection. However, they cannot negotiate or request any repairs.
But they can back out, right?
Yeah, they can. If it's a very big, if we come into a very extreme scenario like foundational issues or something like that, then you could renegotiate the price.
Yeah.
But essentially, you're supposed to do the inspection and then decide if you'd like to proceed with the purchase or not.
Yeah, that's what everyone thinks before the inspection, and then after the inspection, it's not so black and white anymore. There's some gray area suddenly.
I always tell my clients that an inspection is it's like your ex telling you everything that's wrong with you all at once.
You know what? I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
So maybe either you or Joey can help out. We did have somebody on Facebook just post a question up here. How does that work out with the appraiser coming in low? All right. So if somebody does it, the house price goes up, whatever number it is, and it doesn't appraise out. What are my options?
So a few things. Number one, it depends on if the offer has an appraisal gap waiver or not. If it does have an appraisal gap waiver, then the buyer is responsible to make up the difference with a down payment. They can restructure their loan, maybe have a lower down payment if they're already putting a high down payment, and then have higher loan value. So that's if they have the appraisal gap waiver. If they do not have that, then they can renegotiate the price with the seller, assuming the seller is amenable to that, although there's no guarantee that they would be.
No. But Joey, you got any other options as well?
So, yeah, I mean, and this really comes down to down payment or, if the buyer's comfortable, has the ad. And when I say this, I mean, particularly with the case of VA loans, and I apologize, my son is walking behind me with a walkie thing.
No, that's awesome. I love the kids.
Yeah. If it's a VA loan, obviously it's 100% loan to value, right? So there's no down payment involved. However, a lot of veterans still carry assets, but if you can borrow 100%, borrow 100%, right? So they would have the ability to pay dollar for dollar over. If it's someone who's putting 20% down and the appraisal comes in low, I can adjust the loan as long as the appraisal didn't come in so low that I'm now working with a effective 5% down payment. What I mean by that is if someone is buying for $200,000, they're putting $40,000 down, so they have a $160,000 loan amount, right? If the appraisal came in at $180,000, they can still go along with that because my effective down payment is now like 9.5% down, right? But then you also have to deal with PMI. And usually, if that happens, I can talk to the list agent. I can talk to the seller and buyer. If it comes in low, maybe the list agent will provide a credit to cover PMI buyout, a private mortgage insurance buyout, because now we have to deal with that situation. So there's ways to skin the cat. It's just a matter of finding what works for all the parties.
And knowing the rules and knowing the laws, right? Have you ever dealt with VA clients as well, Itai?
So, me personally, I have not had the pleasure yet.
Not had the pleasure?
I've done FHA loans, but VA loans haven't done those yet.
Joey, you were going to add?
No, I thought you were going to mention the appraisal shortage. So on VA, it's a lot easier when an appraisal shortage comes in because you get the Tidewater notice before the appraisal is released, saying that the appraiser is coming in with a value issue possibly. Get additional comps, throw them their way. If that doesn't work, you go into the reconsideration of value. The appraiser's out of the situation. As long as we have good data, we can then have the VA update value by itself. And the director of the appraisal department for the VA put out some data that said 91% of reconsideration of values result in increased values, either to contract price or at least increasing it at the end of the day. So you don't see that on FHA or conventional. So, hey, love those VA loans. Don't forget to love them.
Yeah, that number is super interesting to me because it's like it's darn near impossible to get an appraiser on their own to reconsider an appraisal, presuming that you're just challenging the comps that they used. And when you then tell me that upon a third party being given different data, perhaps better data, then in 91% of the cases they come up with a different result, it suggests to me that there's maybe we need to take another look, generally speaking, at how appraisals work outside of the FHA framework.
And how does that work?
VA framework, sorry.
No, that's all good. Joey, how does that work? I mean, is it by a percentage? And Itai, maybe you could answer this too. When somebody waives the appraisal gap, I'm sure they got to put a dollar amount or some sort of percentage In other words, I'll go up to 10,000 or 100,000 over price. Is that normal?
Correct. Yeah. So typically they'll put a dollar amount.
And then, Joey, what is like the percentage that you're seeing that you could go ahead and still make work as opposed to, the deal getting bombarded? And, my father died when I was really young, and he taught me an old saying that I still remember as a 29-year-old. Yes, I'm lying about my age. But it was pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. All right, as dumb as that sounds. And but I love it, So how could we be a piggy and not a hog when it comes to, overpaying for a house?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like the statement of overpaying, just because at the end of the day,
Fair.
What that home closes at is what the comp is going to be in the future, right, for that neighborhood.
Good point.
So it doesn't matter anymore, because no one's going to see the appraisal outside of the buyer unless it comes in short, and then you got to sign it with the seller if you're going to renegotiate, all that good stuff. But the way that I tell people what they can do with an appraisal gap is I look at what their down payment currently is, and I tell them what the appraisal would need to come in at to leave us at a 5% equity position based on the appraisal at closing. And if it comes in below that number, then we're kind of out of the game unless they want to come in dollar for dollar. But that allows me to at least restructure the loan in a way that they don't have to bring additional funds to closing.
Joey, if people want to get hold of you and ask you more questions about this, and thank you for answering the questions on our Facebook page, how do they get hold of you?
So you can find me at thevaloannerd.com. You can find me on social media as the VA Loan Nerd, and 630-235-2405. Call or text me anytime.
What's that phone number again, please?
630-235-2405.
And Patrick, if anybody has any questions about real estate law, how do they get hold of you?
Well, if you're 30 and under, find me on TikTok, Loftus Law.
What if we lie about being 30 and under?
If you are 40 and under, find me on Instagram, Loftus_law.
What if I lie about being under 40?
Then you can find me on Facebook, and you just search my name.
Sounds like a plan. Itai, I'm sorry. How do people get a hold of you if they have questions on real estate?
Call or text 847-910-3789.
One more time, a little bit slower, please.
847-910-3789.
And are you on any of the other social medias where people can find you?
I'm on Instagram occasionally. My handle is Itai, ITAI _Hasak, HAS like Sam, AK.
Nice.
Not too many Itais.
I think I'm going to send you some friend requests, and hopefully we could do some social media stuff. My name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our website is www.thehomeinspectors.com. And we also own Home Inspection University of Illinois, and that website is HIUIL.com. If you're interested in joining the home inspection business, or if you're looking to hire one of the top-rated home inspection companies in the Chicagoland market, please give us a call. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. Repeating, 312-544-9180. Itai, I want to get back to you again.
Shouldn't we ask Joey how to get in touch with him?
We did not. Joey who? I guess now I'm trying to be funny after I just dropped him off. Joey, please.
Joey, the VA loan nerd.
I let off.
He did lead off. Yeah, I thought I got him. I
Yeah.
started there. I tried to make myself last. But getting back onto, making our clients attractive and stuff like that, and I don't mean by looks, I mean by choosing me as the buyer of your home. What other? So we have the appraisal gap.
And the as-is clause.
The as-is clause. Give me more.
In addition to that, the higher the down payment, the better. It shows the seller that you are financially secure,
Okay.
and will help you out in the long term. In addition to the down payment,
Earnest money.
I would typically put that anywhere from 3 to 5%. Again, shows the seller that you are serious and ready to do business. Beyond that, I'm also seeing a preference for quicker close for people who have already, purchased their home or are about to purchase a home. What I'm seeing is some buyers are getting underwritten before they actually go under contract. And Joey, I'm not sure if you're if you do this or not. I know Guaranteed Rate does some of this stuff.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah,
on this show.
boo. We're going to hit this year. It's the Federal Savings Bank. There's only one mortgage company that's good in this world, and that's Joey.
Yeah. No, every lender has the ability to pre-underwrite files. So it's just a matter of choice, honestly, and collecting X amount of dollars up front from the buyer to do that. So, no, totally common.
Well, you kind of do that on your own, Joey, right?
So I am nuts. I am who I am. Anytime that I'm coming out of underwriting on my initial submission, I know I'm only going to need title insurance and appraisal because it's not hard to do what we do. It's really easy to be lazy. If you know what to look for, if you can think like an underwriter, I mean, I pull COE, the certificate of eligibility on VA loans. I have my assistant pull CAVERS. I'm sorry. It's basically a federal debt service to make sure that if we're doing an FHA or VA loan, that we're not going to have a problem with any federal debt that's outstanding, right? There's no open defaults with the government because that will kill a loan right off the bat.
Itai doesn't know why we're laughing at all that because Joey tends to use quite a few acronyms, and then
it triggers me.
Yeah, Charlie has to stop him in his tracks and be like, "Well, what does that stand for?" And so now Joey has become self-correcting, so he will still use the acronym, and then he'll almost move to the next part of them, and then he'll explain what the acronym means, and hearing him do that makes me chuckle because I know why he's doing that.
It's the Credit Alert Information Verification Reporting System. That's CAVERS. That's why we call it CAVERS.
Nice.
I love it.
An annoying acronym. And that's where federal defaults. So especially student loans. That's the one you see the most often is people that have defaulted on student loans even 20 years ago and they completely forgot about it. The Fed didn't forget about it. It's still sitting there and we'll find it. And it's kill. It has. I've seen it kill deals before, and I'm just like, dude, you gotta stay up on that stuff, man. So yeah, I literally just go through my whole process, and I've never had a pre-approval not closed. Like that would be so embarrassing.
That's pretty impressive.
I'd probably quit the freaking business if I did, because you're dealing with people's lives. This is their homes. This is like a basic need. Don't mess with that. Just
but you're more
be a crappy lender. Yeah,
you're more mature than I am, Joey. I mean, I just told Itai this morning the story of me going through my divorce, and then I ended up driving an Uber for a little while, and that only lasted until because I got all 5 stars every time. But as soon as I got that one, less than 5-star review, I quick, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
When I saw how many people rated me as a passenger less than 5 stars, I felt some kind of way about it. I was ready to go right over to Lyft and never see Uber again, but Uber's cheaper sometimes. So
Itai, we got a question, from Facebook that came up for you, and it's something I'd like to know the answer to, and I really don't know if we even have an answer. But the wording is, how can inspectors help drive the market, in your opinion? What is a home inspector? What can they do to help drive this market, or help
drive it in a certain direction? Or
I guess I'm not sure either what they're asking. I'm gonna make an assumption saying that I think they want to know how can we help our clients. Even though we come in after the contract is signed, but what can we do? Are there any options where you can use a home inspector in order to make yourself, like waiving the home inspection is another option that people do.
That is another option, yes.
Kind of like the as-is thing that you were talking about earlier. So how does our role come into that? If they still do an inspection, what are your expectations from a home inspector, I guess?
Information, essentially.
More accuracy?
Yeah, well, I want them to provide the buyer with all the information about the home that they find.
Right.
So they can make an informed decision on whether they, especially in an as-is situation, whether they want to proceed with the sale or not.
Yeah.
So, information is king.
Do you prefer a longer report, even with little items on there, or a shorter report with like only major items on there?
I prefer both. So typically an inspection will have a summary at the front and then a more detailed report following that.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Yeah, in talking to quite a few inspectors, the impression I get is that inspectors want to be as thorough as they possibly can. They take pride in their work, but they also don't want to be in a situation where they are scaring a buyer unnecessarily. And so it seems to me that perhaps that might be informing that question in the sense that where do we find that the needle has been threaded between being as informative as possible but not going so far as to make everything seem like it is a walk away sort of situation?
Well, again, I think it comes down to kind of a balancing act. Explain to the buyer whether something is actually a big deal or not.
There it is. Accuracy is the key.
Just because you identify an issue, because we all know no home is built perfectly. Even if it's new construction, an inspector's going to find something.
Because something's going to exist. It's not like we're making it up. There's no home is ever perfect. I've been doing this
always
a long
get
time.
An inspection on new construction from an outside inspector. Always, always, always.
100%. And
But accuracy, I think, is the biggest thing. I want to chime in on my 2 cents because when it comes to communication, and that's the biggest thing that all of us, we're all advisors that are on the show right now, and communicating that information to our client in a clear, concise, accurate manner allows them to make an educated decision. And that's all we are, is nothing more than advisors. I'm not a decision maker. But I think where it happens is a lot of people, and we do it on our reports too. I'm guilty of this, all right? The report will pop up there. You'll see this big red box. It'll say that this is a safety hazard. You and your family are going to die in 2 weeks and blah, blah, blah. And all it is a missing cover plate on a 1099 junction box in the attic, all right? So for a lousy $2 and 2 screws, we can make that big, dangerous problem go away, and our family will live for 3 weeks.
Charlie, what's a 1099 junction box? Boy, you talk about using jargon.
I know, right? And then, Joey, you should be yelling at me for this to get you even. The little square junction boxes that we pretty much put outlets and light fixtures and, receptacles and so forth. And then sometimes it's just splices together that we put up in there, but it needs to be covered up because a lot of people don't realize that just being out in the open like that, whenever there's a short, and it happens a lot, I actually recorded an electrical panel exploding. I got it on videotape, which is pretty cool. And exploding might be a little exaggerated. It had a little fireworks show that went on inside of it, so there were sparks that were flying. And that happened every time the air conditioning turned on.
Did that go on the report?
It did go in the report, actually. The sad thing is I took the dead front off, and as I was walking to go get more tools, my flashlight net out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash, and the air conditioning just kicked on at the same time. So what does a big dummy home inspector do? You turn the air conditioning off, you turn it back on again, and you get your video camera out, right? I mean, I'm not smart. Let's get that understood right away. So I got this whole thing on video. But the point I'm trying to make is the reason why we cover all these panels and we seal them up and we don't want to have openings in them is because sparks happen inside there. Explosions happen inside there. And then you get molten metal that's spraying out there. And we build out of wood. And that old story about the 3 little piggies comes into play, And the big bad wolf might be that spark that comes in there. And if it gets to something that's flammable, you'll burn your house down. And it's not exaggerating. In my 37 years in the fire department, I could remember probably about a dozen different fires that when we did the cause and origin, it comes back to where did it start? It went right back to the panel. All right. And you see holes in there, and you could see how everything points. This is where the fire came out. This is where it ignited. So it's a legitimate thing. I'm sorry, man. Did I go off the deep end? All right. Somebody throw stuff at me.
Yeah, no, but to bring it back to the original point, I think it just comes down to framing, any potential issues that you find, right? And explaining to the buyer and walking them through, okay, here's what I found, but here's what this entails, right? You can fix it by doing 1, 2, 3, or maybe it's not a fixable issue, right? In which point it's a bigger ticket item.
Sometimes I want to get every single real estate agent to take a home inspection class. More so if it's anything, how to describe what you just did, how to describe to your client when they read the report so they can navigate to it. I wouldn't mind getting the attorneys in on this too.
Funny you mentioned that because I did take a class at the very beginning of my career. So,
home inspection?
Yeah, just
like the full blown out class?
No, not the full blown out. There was an inspection company. They did a couple sessions for realtors.
Oh, I know those guys. Yeah, they're on Lincoln Park in Chicago. Initials are HT, and I'm not saying that out loud at all. So, but seriously, we do have a program. I'm more than happy to waive the fees to go ahead and take our home inspection class to just about anybody who wants to learn more about what it is that a home inspector should know. All right, and it's a lot what we should know, far more than the 60 hours minimum that comes in there.
I don't know how anyone gets involved in this industry. Whether it's on the attorney side, the realtor side, certainly the inspector side. And maybe not so much on the mortgage broker side, so Joe, you can sit this one out. But just knowing the bricks and sticks and just what is all this stuff. I've got a background in construction, so massively, it's super helpful. And so it's not just learning about the real estate on the go, inspection by inspection. It's actually knowing sort of in my mind, I can picture what is underneath those. Underneath the drywall, and some of the different things. Some of the stuff that gets pointed out, you go, look, yes, based on 2023 standards, this is incorrect. It's wrong. But this house was built in 1945, and so that level of expectation, we're not going to see AFCI breakers in such a house unless that breaker box has been replaced more recently. Does that make it unsafe? Not necessarily.
No, and that's a good point, and all three of you guys jump in on this, but in all reality, codes, are the minimum safe standards, all right? And you are 100% right. There's nothing in the codes that says you have, and I'm going to do the quotation mark, all capped, have to go ahead and bring a house up to today's standards. But I'll be honest with you, I'm going to recommend, especially when it comes to GFCIs, I want everybody on our team, if it's in a kitchen, if it's in a bathroom, basement, exterior, garage, I believe in those. We're talking $25, is all it is to go ahead and put either one circuit breaker for whatever that circuit is, or the very first outlet. That we only have to put one, and that covers everything downstream of it to create that GFI protection for somebody. And that's not current code. It doesn't have to be done. But it's still today's minimum safe. And if we learn from what things were in 1902 compared to 2023, I think it makes a big difference. Am I wrong? Or?
Well, I would... Okay, so let me argue with you a little bit. In terms of, from a home buyer's perspective, if I'm buying a 1902 house and it doesn't have every single fixture up to 2023 standards, or even up to 2003 standards, that's something I should take into account when I am looking at buying such a house. You've got to know what you're looking at and
knowledge is power.
And what you're considering buying. If you need everything to 2023 standards, go buy new construction. But to your point, I'm not arguing with you the efficacy of GFIs, which you didn't explain what that is. Certainly, that would be something to take under consideration, I think, once you move in. Once you've taken possession of the property, you might say to yourself, yes, all of this fuse box, I should consider upgrading to a circuit breaker box. Or not, but probably, yeah.
But isn't it most of the stuff that we find? I mean, what percentage do you think in the home inspection report, and this is for both of you, Patrick and Itai, what percentage do you think get negotiated? And I know it's a hot seller's market, but is it 2 items, 10%, 1%?
Yeah, it's every deal's different.
Yeah,
is it okay?
All over the place.
But no, it's never everything.
I'd say in a standard deal, it's not a lot.
I don't think so either.
There's too many items typically.
I mean, look, the best deals for me are the ones where I don't get to demonstrate how brilliant I am, because the inspection report came in and there's a handful of little things, and I go, I got good news and bad news for you, buyer. The good news is, man, this place, it looks like it's in great shape. The bad news is we don't have much leverage to try to get the seller to give us stuff. But I'd say the good news in this situation outweighs the bad.
I agree, and leverage is the most important part. Patrick, you're getting called out on the carpet. I know this is from another home inspector on this one.
Oh boy.
That could potentially be a large cost for a home buyer after they close on the home. And before you answer, I'm going to jump in on this one. It's true. That statement is true. However, this country, the greatest thing about it is the freedom of choice. And as long as we give all that knowledge to our client and they make that a choice, that's their choice. And I don't believe that we as home inspectors, you as an attorney, Joey as a mortgage broker, or you as a real estate agent, Itai, I don't believe we should be making decisions for anybody. However, if we do our jobs and we do them right, we should be able to give them enough information so they can make an intelligent decision.
Yeah, the
argument with me.
The point is not to make sure my client never has an expensive repair post-closing. It can't be that, because otherwise there are a certain percentage of homes that just couldn't get sold. No one would, if the point was never have another expensive repair, that you wouldn't, heck, you would never buy a house, because someday you're going to replace the furnace, someday you're going to replace the AC, someday you're going to replace the roof. It's inevitable. But to your point, and I'm not going to argue with you on this, the information is what's important. So if the buyer has certain expectations about not having to have such expenditures, I think you need to go into the situation knowing that, and don't go look at a vintage bungalow up in Portage Park that was built in 1950, or at least one that hasn't had all the mechanicals replaced in recent times. That's you're setting yourself up for a bad time, really.
Yeah.
So the information then can create a set of realistic expectations, which then sets you up for the best chance of success for the future.
No, I couldn't agree. Go ahead. You were going to add something.
Yeah, no, look, the purpose of the inspection is to know to figure out what you're walking into as a buyer. I always tell all my clients the inspection items are going to fall into one of four buckets. It's either going to be a non-issue, right? Like something super tiny, like switching
Nail
on an
pops,
outlet.
a little bit of paints, cracks in drywall. I get all that. Caulk, needed.
Bucket number two will be, items that you may want a credit for. So let's say the refrigerator's broken, you want to pick out your own fridge, you ask for a credit in that situation, right? Third bucket would be items that you would want the seller to repair themselves, as opposed to providing you with a credit. And bucket number four is the end-all, be-all deal breaker. For example, that would be like a foundational issue or something like that.
I wrote a little pamphlet, I guess, or an ebook that we give to all our clients how to negotiate after the home inspection, right? And at the very end, I talk about you take everything that we put in this report and you put them in three different categories. One is your deal killer list. If I don't get these things fixed or repaired, I'm not buying this house, period. All right. The third column is the I got this list. All right. We know that their list is going to be there, and not everything is, going to be perfect. And there's things that we should accept, right? We want to be rational. We want to be reasonable. We don't want to be coming across as we're taking advantage of other people. So this is my list of things that I'm okay with. Everything else goes in column two. And column two is where I let my real estate agent and my real estate attorney be my hero, be my advocate, and get me as much of this as you can. But even if, and I think this is fair to give you this bit of information, even if you can't get me any of these things, I'm still proceeding with the deal. Is that fair to give you guys guidance? And then, because you understand, you being Itai, you understand the market, you understand the leverage, you understand how much power your client does or does not have, and that you can help move some of those items in a different list that comes in there. What do you think of that?
Yeah, those are all fair points. That's exactly how we would handle it. Look, I think that biggest reason deals fall through with an inspection isn't necessarily because there was something earth-shattering found in an inspection. I've seen plenty of deals, from colleagues or in the market that fall through simply because the buyer wasn't prepared by their agent or by their inspector as to what to expect in the home inspection. And once they see that laundry list, because there's always a laundry list, they get scared off, especially if they're first-time home buyers, and then they walk away from that deal.
And Patrick, this goes to you, though, because you're the person who actually sees the emotional reaction from a client, how do you get them back on the logical thinking?
How do I get someone who's on tilt back into their fully adult mind frame? Usually that just takes time. So if someone is like, super triggered, you say, look, let's give this some time, or maybe, you build in a situation where you go, there's something that's really bothering you about this. Maybe we do get another professional in to take a look at it. And that gives us some more time, gives us some more information. It's the surprises really that often, more often than not, end up killing a deal in terms of the inspection. And my process, as it's evolved to this point, and it will continue to evolve probably until the day I do my last deal, is we go through the inspection summary with a fine-tooth comb. We talk about every one of those items. What is it? Why is it bad? How bad can we expect that it might be? But once we're done with all of that, we're going to zoom out and we're going to go. So let's not try to simply win this inspection negotiation. That's not the point here. The holistic approach is that you want to buy this house, and if
they want to sell this house,
exactly. So if we can get to a point where we've met your bare minimums to move forward, then that's the deal. And yes, we want the seller to give as much as possible. And yeah, I kind of I game it out a little bit with them. If the seller does X, Y, or Z, this is probably how we would respond. And let's not go any farther than that because there's too many variables. But assuming that the conversation didn't start off with there's absolutely a deal breaker, in which case that's a very simple conversation. I just read a simple letter saying we're out, done deal. But normally, if we've made it past that part of the conversation, now we're just talking about where do we need to land bare minimum, and if it's we're probably okay with this even without anything from the seller. That's good to talk about even before the seller responds, because now the buyer understands that it could be a stubborn seller who says zero, in which case, okay, feel whatever way, feel however you want to feel about that. But at the end of the day, let's focus on the big picture, which is that we're still going to buy the house.
Exactly. And, again, it's all an emotional thing that comes in there. And I don't know, I lost my temper one time and I got into an argument when I was living in a condo, and somebody used a phrase that, well, they jumped off the cliff just to feel the breeze on their face. And yeah, you might feel good about that emotional thing, but when you go back and you start thinking about it, what did I do? Because I'm trying to negotiate on principle. Well, I deserve, to have those GFIs installed or whatever it is, right? Instead of, yeah, but you can do it yourself too. So everything boils down to me is how much and who pays. Those are really the two things. And you could throw in there, is it even worth fixing? All right. And I get it, some things are that way as well. But that's where the leverage comes into play with you guys to bring them in there. So
yeah, am I going to blow 3 inches of loose insulation into the attic just because the insulation has settled over the past 30 years?
Right.
Probably not.
No. Or maybe yeah. They changed it to an R49 now for attic insulation. So you're okay. I'm sorry, I love it and stuff like that. So Itai, give us more scoop. I stole that one away from you. I'm sorry. So what other things do you do to make your client aggressive?
Oh, for multiple offer situations?
Yes.
So we talked about as is. We talked about the appraisal gap waiver. We talked about down payment, earnest money. Although earnest money, I will say, like I said, typically 3 to 5% in multiple offer situations. Not as big of an item as, let's say, down payment or as is or appraisal gap waivers. Price obviously being the highest driving factor. Beyond that, make sure that you touch base with the listing agent to understand what the seller's needs are in terms of specific terms like closing. Some buyers are under contract already on their new place and they need to close quickly. Some people need, especially in a market like today, extra time to look for it. So maybe we have to work out a leaseback agreement.
Is there something Joey can do to kind of be an ally there? Like, call up the listing agent and explain how awesome a lender he is? Or?
Absolutely. That was my next point.
Oh.
So, yes. So, definitely have Joey call the listing agent and explain, how much of a slam dunk you are as a buyer. And the more assurances we can give to the listing agent, the better.
Outstanding. And I want to get into, the home inspector that's on the Facebook listing right now mentioned about pre-listing. It's just not a common thing around here. But why not? Get these things ahead of time. In construction, it was always good, fast, and cheap, right? And when you're in the real estate transaction during that window of negotiations, you don't have the luxury of not being fast. All right? So that's got to be there. So now your choice is it going to be good or is it going to be cheap? Because it's not, one of those is going away. So you're either going to pay a lot or it's going to be crappy, one of the two. And so my thought process is I can't seem to be pushing, let's get this pre-listing stuff out here. Let's get some of these things arranged and corrected early on. So you tell me, why is that such a negative thing? And we are running short on time.
I'm sorry, you're referring about
pre-listing.
Like pocket
pre-listing inspections.
Oh, pre-listing.
Yeah, like the seller orders an inspection. Would you ever recommend such a thing?
No. Unless you're rehabbing a home,
and that's common.
And then selling it.
You're 95% or more of the real estate agents are saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think. Look, you've lived in the home. You know what the issues are. You need to disclose that by law. Right, to any potential buyers. Totally lost my train of thought.
No, that's all right. We're running out of time anyway a little bit. Itai, tell me how somebody gets hold of you if they got more questions about real estate or they want to extend this conversation.
Yeah, again, best way to contact me is via call or text, 847-910-3789. Or, on Instagram, my handle is Itai, ITAI _Hasak, HASAK.
Outstanding. And that's with Compass Realty. Joey, how do they get hold of you?
Well, you can find me at thevaloannerd.com, across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd. You can also call or text me at 630-235-2405.
And then Patrick, please.
You hear that voice? How is Joey's client not getting their offer accepted after he sweet talks?
Oh, I used it so hard yesterday. We got the deal. I love it.
All right, call me. You can call me at 773-632-8330.
Sounds good. And what's going on with your TikTok stuff?
Oh, I'm just working on, trying to get my following up. On the Loftus Law TikTok has 41 followers.
We're in double digits. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm working on 42, hopefully. But my side hustle, I've got like 52,400. So if you ever want to find a cheap plane ticket, you can follow me at Let Me Help You Fly on TikTok.
Sounds good. And my name is Charlie Bellefontaine, and you're listening to the HomeBuyer's Hour. Our company is Chicagoland Home Inspectors. I've had a few people ask me about that ebook already on Facebook, and I will reply to it, and I'll put a link to it up on our Facebook page. If you're used to it, I'll try to get it up on the YouTube as well. Chicagoland Home Inspectors, our phone number is 312-544-9180, and our website is www.thehomeinspectors, and that's plural, that's an ORS, and it's a .com. And if you're interested in joining the home inspection profession, our school is Home Inspection University of Illinois, and that's HIUIL.com. I want to give special thank you to Devin. He's our producer, makes everything work here. And Bernie, thank you for listening. Everybody else, this is Charlie, and I'm out.